Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome to another session of Srimad Bhagavatam,
Hare Krishna.
the ultimate culmination of knowledge of Vedas, the commentary on Vedas. So last time we spoke about Aghasur Vadha, killing of Aghasur by Krishna. And this particular pastime of killing of Aghasur is a very unique and special pastime in Srimad Bhagavatam. And somehow personally, I like this pastime extremely intensely. I love this pastime, and hundreds of times I have spoken, but I have never felt satisfied. I want to say it again and again. So some of the different features of Aghasur Leela from Anand Vrindavan Champu we will recite today. There it is said that when Krishna entered the mouth of Aghasur, the demigods cried out, "Alas, alas." Actually, Krishna cried piteously when his dear friends entered the mouth of Aghasur. The demons rejoiced, ha ha ha. But Krishna was very much moved by the cries of the demigods, and he also was lamenting. So he decided to kill Aghasur. Now, when Krishna entered Aghasur's body, in the end, after the coward boys entered, and he entered the last. So Aghasur shook in fear. Somehow, he gave little pleasure to the coward boys for some time. And Krishna is very happy when somebody pleases his devotees, even in a minor way. If they give pleasure to his devotees, he becomes very happy. So, but when Krishna entered, his Aghasur's heart shook in fear. He was very mystical. He was very powerful. It is explained in the Anand Vrindavan Champu that his body was simply expanding and expanding and expanding while he was standing over there also. It's not that he was stationary there, he was expanding, he was so mystical. But Krishna's mystic powers, Krishna is called Yogeshwara, his mystic powers overwhelmed the powers of mysticism of Aghasur. And because of Krishna's mystic power, Aghasur lost all the control over his limbs and his mouth remained stuck open. He could not close it. Before we had read that as soon as Krishna went inside, he closed the mouth. But the reality is, he wanted to close it to kill Krishna and everybody else. But sometimes we get temporomandibular lock. We do yawning and our mouth gets completely open only. We cannot just, it's called temporomandibular lock. So that's kind of something, that kind of thing happened. And Anand Vrindavan Champu says that his upper lip was in the heavenly planets. Before it was explained in Bhagavatam that the upper lip of Aghasur was in the clouds at the top of the mountain. But in Anand Vrindavan Champu, it is said his mouth was reaching all the way up to heavens. So after this mouth is open, Aghasur is wondering what's going to happen. And the first thing Krishna does, when he becomes hot, his temperature increases and Aghasur starts feeling burning inside his throat. To add on to that, Krishna expanded in that hot condition. He had become hot like iron rod, and he expanded himself in such a way that his whole throat entrance in his body got completely blocked by the boulder of Krishna's hot body. It exploded. Aghasur's body, the front part of his body, exploded, very beautifully depicted here, like an overripe green watermelon. It exploded. And the eyes were looking like, before, two huge ruby boulders just above the mountain cave, which was mesmerizing everybody. How this can be possible? The way Agasur's upper lip had his two eyes, they looked like rubies, but they looked like ruby boulders. And these eyes, which were like ruby boulders, they came out of the socket of the eyes and fell down. And at that moment of time, Agasur died. And very interesting happened. Agasur died, and then Krishna already had witnessed his coward friends who were dead inside the body of Agasur. So he glanced over them, and his body, which was fragrant, ultimately fragrant, and his aroma and his personality was so transcendental. Just by his divine glance, all the coward boys, they woke up as if they woke up from long slumber. And wearing the fresh forest flower garland, Krishna looked very gorgeous as fresh blue rain cloud. And he came out and revived his friends with the pleasant stream of nectar coming from his beautiful form and by his merciful glance. And who was watching? All the demigods and other human beings and celestial beings were all watching, because Agasur had created terror in all the 14 planets, including Brahma's planets. The residents of Brahmaloka were completely in fear. They were trembling with the name of Agasur. So when they came to know that Krishna is now dealing with Agasur, everybody had come behind the clouds to watch this scene. And when they saw that Agasur died, they could not believe it. Such a small coward boy who was just a 5-year-old in Kumara Avastha, he made Agasur die. And everyone saw, to their great surprise, the spirit soul of Agasur came out of the body of Agasur. And how was it explained? It was explained it was more brilliant than thousands of suns and moon together. It waited for a while till Krishna came out from Agasur's mouth, and then it merged in the body of Krishna and attained Sayujya Mukti. So one thing we should understand, Srila Prabhupada very beautifully explains why Krishna did this, why he made him come out and wait for some time. First thing, Krishna wanted everybody to know the power of the spirit soul, which is more brilliant than thousands of suns and moons together. In its purest state, what is the soul all about? To explain and to exhibit the glory of the soul, which is simply a minute, infinitesimal part of Sri Krishna's existence. Krishna wanted to exhibit that. And second thing Krishna wanted to exhibit, Prabhupada explains that Krishna wanted to tell everybody that Natvam neme janadipa, Natve bhavam jatunasam, Natvam neme janadipa. All of us exist eternally as individual souls. We are not one with the Lord. We are always eternally fragmented parts and parcels of Lord, existing individually, independent of the Lord. So he made him wait, and everybody saw that waiting soul. And then everybody saw it entering the body of Krishna. So there are two fortunes of Agasur, two good fortunes, because he pleased the coward boys. The first fortune is Krishna entered his body. And by the pleasure of coward boys, he had gained some Agya Sukruti. And by the touch of Krishna's divine body, he attained complete purification. By all the pain that he received, he was completely purified by Krishna. And then first Krishna entered his body, then Krishna allowed him to enter in his body. These are the two fortunes. Now, in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is explained, Sva Anushritastra Dharmasya Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. Prabhupada says in the purport of this shloka that Lord Brahma, Shiva, and others, they all offered prayers when they saw that Agasur was killed by Krishna. They wanted to glorify Krishna. It is said that the prayers were so pure and so powerful that they echoed in all the 14 planets. and they sanctified the whole Brahmanda just by the all-pervading sound vibration that was created by the sincere and pure prayers of demigods like Brahma and Shiva and others. Now, Prabhupada also explained very beautiful point here. Everybody has some qualification and some skills. All of us also have some qualifications, some qualities. And it is explained that as per each of our quality, one should engage ourselves in serving and pleasing and glorifying Krishna. So as per one's own propensities and capacities, each and every demigod and category of demigods, they have offered variety of services. For example, some played kettle drum called bheris, some played dundubis, some played other instruments. The Gandharva Patnis and Vidyavadar Patnis, they are expert in singing. They sang beautiful songs in high pitch. There is a Siddhaloka. In the Siddhaloka, their wives, they were expert in playing mridanga, so they played mridanga. Then the society girls of heavenly planets, they please Indra, Urvashi, Ramba, Menaka, and many thousands of them who are called as society girls of Swargaloka. They are expert in dancing, so they danced in ecstasy to appease Krishna and glorify Krishna. And Kinnaras, they are also very beautiful in singing. Kinnaraloka, by birth only. When Gandharvas are very beautiful in singing, so they all sang in very sweet melodies and ragas. With this beautiful singing and instruments and dancing and sounds of happiness, it is said that the whole universe got deafened by so much of sound of happiness. And there are some demigods who are called Deva Rishis. They were picking up flowers and they were throwing those flowers from Nandanvan over the place where Krishna was performing his pastimes. Lord Shiva played his damru, and his damru was the most prominent sound in the melody that was created. 1 minute. So it explains that Shiva's damru predominated the entire universe. Please listen carefully what Shiva did. Amongst all the demigods, how it was exclusive. He danced so wildly in ecstasy that it cracked the covering of the universe. Also created a feeling of destruction, devastation for some time. Now see what next happened. He danced so in ecstasy that the crescent moon on his head poured streams of nectar everywhere. It's like sprinkled everywhere because the moon is the storehouse of Amrita, the nectar. Moon has been given the custody of Amrita. So when Shiva became ecstatic, the moon also became ecstatic and he poured Amrut everywhere, all 4 directions. And where did the Amrut fall? The nectar fell on the skulls in the garland of skulls. It fell on that. And because the nectar fell on the skulls developed bodies. They became didn't remain in skulls. They became human beings. And they also started dancing joyfully and skillfully, completely in ecstasy. This astonished all the demigods when they saw the effect of Shiva's mercy and Shiva's ecstasy, and they laughed heartily. So this is the way the demigods celebrated the killing of Aghasur, because they were very happy. Aghasur had created terror in all the variety of demigod lokas. Aghasur had created terror, and they saw Aghasur, it's impossible, unbelievable thing that this person can be killed anytime. They saw him getting killed by Krishna, they were so happy. So they celebrated like this. And the next item today is how the coward boys responded to this wonderful thing. See, the coward boys, they were discussing before that, oh, this can be a demon, oh, this can be a highway, or this can be a play tool, or this can be a mystical play, jantar mantar for us, mystical situation we can enjoy. And some people say, no, he's a demon. It looks like he's a demon. And suddenly somebody said, so what? Krishna had killed Putana, Shakatasur, Karnavarta, Bakasur, so he will kill him also. Let's go. Let's go. And Krishna was actually, it is said that they were talking so loudly among themselves about this Agasur that Krishna actually shouted at them loudly, don't go, don't go, don't go. But they were so happy, dancing, jumping, talking, that they could not hear Krishna's warnings. And they entered very happily, playfully. And they actually enjoyed for some time. So then when they died, they were revived by Krishna. And the coward boys actually came out and they all one by one embraced Krishna. And they embraced each other. It was such a celebration for them because they knew that Krishna saved us. That's why they really said, Jayati, Jayati, Jayati. All demigods shouted from the skies, Jayati, Jayati, all glories, all glories. That's why very interesting thing happened. The place where this all took place is called as Jait, Jait, which is the Apabhramsha or what do you call misnomer of the word called Jayati. Because everybody exclaimed Jayati, the place was called Jait. And technically also is called as Ajayvan. The whole pastime of Agasur coming, displaying himself and getting killed took place in Ajayvan. And today this Ajayvan is on the highway of Delhi Agra, and we go to Chatikara from Vrindavan by 6 kilometers, and we go to north side towards Chhata. In about 3 to 4 kilometers on left side, this Ajayvan comes, which is also called Jait. And today also there is a symbol of the snake that is called Agasur. And interestingly, you will be happy to know that this happened when Krishna was 5 years old in his Kumara Avastha, in his Kumara stage of life, that is up to 5 years. And then Krishna became big and then he started tending big cows and he became Gopa. From Vatsapal, he became Gopal. And then he subdued Kaliya and then he ordered Kaliya to leave the lake and go somewhere else. So Kaliya was now pure devotee and he was very hesitant to leave Vrindavan Dham and he was so recipient of such a mercy of Krishna. So he was hesitant, but he was told to go. So he left Kali Deh, the area, the lake of Kaliya. And he went and stayed for some time in this Ajayvan, where Agasur was killed before, meditating how to live, how to live. His legs were not, his body was not traveling ahead simply because of desire, because he had developed pure devotion for Krishna. His wife also did not want to leave. So it is said in this same place of Jait or Ajayvan, Kaliya stayed with his hundreds of wives and thousands of children. And then from there he moved to Fiji Island as per the order of Krishna. So then after revival, the coward boys started speaking. We were knocked down by the burning poison of Agasur. How did you bring us back to life? Now Krishna says, this is all playful and very loving talks. Huh? It is said Krishna was so happy to meet his coward boys again. His every gesture was filled with streams of nectar of love for his friends. So what he said, you know something? I am the perfect antidote to neutralize the snake poison. And secondly, I can kill the poison giver also, that is the snake. So I am the antidote of the poison and I am also the snake killer. If anyone smells this, that is my nectarian body, if anyone smells the fragrance of my body, he will become joyful. The dead will become alive and they will enjoy the mellow of love. For me and for everybody else, the love will spring out of their heart. So Krishna's witty remarks, playful remarks, they really increase the love of the coward boys for him. Feeling proud of Krishna, one Gopa said, you remember? It was me who told. Yes, Krishna will kill Agasur, we should not fear. It was me who told. So then it is very interesting. Srimad Bhagavatam is such a fantastic scripture. What is not there in Srimad Bhagavatam? Every single thing we need to know and we have to know is there in Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, first it is explained that Krishna allowed him to enter in his body and become one with him. That is called as Sayujya Mukti. And actually, amongst muktis, this mukti only is called as mukti. Rest other muktis are called as vimukti because they are not impersonal liberation like merging in the body of Krishna. Others are called sarupya, salokya, samipya, sarshti. What does that mean? Sarupya means gaining the same form as the Lord, Vaikuntha form. Salokya means being able to stay on the same planet as the Lord, as a resident of the same planet of Lords. Samipya means being able to stay very near the Lord, in close proximity. And Sarshti means gaining all these 6 opulences like the Lord. That is strength and renunciation and beauty and knowledge and so many things are there. So these 6 opulences when one gets, this is called Sarshti and these are called Vimukti. It's also a higher level of liberation. And higher than that is attaining Shuddha Bhakti for the Lord. So these muktis and vimuktis are all running behind the devotee with folded hands. The devotees don't even look at them, don't even turn and look at them. They're not even attracted even by inch by all those things. They're simply attracted by pure devotional service, by which only Sri Krishna is attracted. Sri Krishna gets attracted only with Shuddha Bhakti. And one who is attracting Krishna with Shuddha Bhakti does not get attracted to any of these mukti or vimuktis. Now from in the 10th canto, 12th chapter, where is all this explained, Aghasur, from 33rd verse to 40th verse if you read, in 33rd verse and 30th verse it is explained by Prabhupada in the purport that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur further explained from the scripture called Vaishnav Toshani, written by Jiva Goswami. What did he explain? That actually in the beginning Krishna gave him Sayujya, that is merging in the body, becoming one with the body of Krishna. That kind of mukti. But later on, like Jai Vijay, they took 3 forms. First is Hiranyaksha Hiranyakashipu, they got Sayujya Mukti. And second, Ravan Kumbhakarna, again Sayujya Mukti. Third time, Dantavakra and Shishupal, again Sayujya Mukti. But after that, they attained Sarupya Mukti. They became like Vaikuntha men physically, and they positioned themselves back in the gate of the Vaikuntha. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Pad explains that like Jai and Vijay, Aghasur also, because he gave pleasure to the devotees of the Lord, he was little later awarded the Sarupya Mukti. He attained the Vaikuntha form of the Lord, 4-armed form, holding Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma, and he was reinstated on the planet of the Lord, where Lord was going to stay eternally, or Lord stays eternally. So thus Aghasur attained the body like Lord Narayan. This is amazing. When I read this, I was really amazing. I have always read before that he became one with the body of the Lord by Sayujya Mukti. But Srimad Bhagavatam in the 38th verse of 12th canto, 10th canto, 12th chapter, explains clearly, Shukdev Maharaj tells in his words clearly that Aghasur attained the same bodily features as Lord Narayan. So by touch, again Prabhupada explained very beautifully, by entering the body of Aghasur, Aghasur received the qualification for Sayujya Mukti. And by Krishna's and his friends' sporting spirit, with that mood they entered in a very sporting spirit, that is called as Sakhya Leela, so has parihas, jokings, sporting spirit, Aghasur was qualified to receive Sarupya Mukti. So Prabhupada explains in a very beautiful way here that without pleasure of the Lord, without desire to please the Lord and glorify the Lord, all the opulences that we possess are simply Mandanam Lokaranjanam. Bhagavad Bhakti Hinasya Jati Shastram Japat Tapaha Apranayaiva Dehasya Mandanam Lokaranjanam. All of us have opulences. Aghasur had so many opulences. He was so mystic, he was so powerful. But because his mysticism was utilized by Krishna for his pleasure. In other words, Krishna was very happy in having sporting spirit with his friends while entering the mouth of Aghasur. So somehow Aghasur's opulences, Aghasur's siddhi, Aghasur's mystic potencies were utilized to please Krishna and to give some pleasure to coward boys. So because of that, instead of just having those opulences as decorated dead body, it was the cause of Aghasur's receiving Sarupya Mukti. So the dead body, see how if one becomes pure, one becomes purified by the mercy of the Lord or his devotees. Everything, even the mortal remains of such a devotee becomes very glorious. So how it happened in Aghasur? The dead body of Aghasur was like a big playful sporting place, like a picnic spot. And all the Brijbasis would regularly come and see the dead body of Aghasur. Sometimes, we used to go to Santa Cruz with the Juhu Garden we used to visit. And there is a one replica of aeroplane there. And we have gone several times in childhood to that Juhu Garden to just see that aeroplane, go inside, feel like sitting in the airplane, get down from one end, get down to one end. So it was like a dummy airplane, but it became picnic spot. We went so many times there. And Aghasur died and he left something like, ever expanding almost 18 miles long body he had. And I told last time that he was hundreds of miles, his body was tall. I mean, the width was touching the sky. His mouth was touching the heavens. So that became like a, monumental situation. And it gave so much pleasure to all Brijbasis. So he served the Brijbasis by giving them pleasure even after he died. So we should always aim that Jivane Marane Gati Are Nahi Mo. We should serve the Lord in this Jivan, in this life, and also serve the Lord in our death and even after death. Everything should be in service to the Lord. Then Krishna killed Aghasur when he was 5-year-old, as I told you. But the story of Aghasur killing was narrated by the coward boys to their parents when Krishna was 6-year-old. Both the days were Lord Balram's birthdays. Let me make everybody mute here. Somebody is making some noise. Okay. So now it's a very interesting factor. When Krishna killed Aghasur, Balramji was not there because that day was his birthday. Some other Rohini told him, please don't go for today's herding calves. You have to remain behind and you have to take bath and we'll do Abhishek for you. And you have to Brahmanas will chant mantras for you, bring blessings to you, and you will be donating cows and charity to all the Brahmins. So Balramji was not there. Another occasion when Balramji was not there, when Kalia was subdued by Krishna. That day also was Balramji's birthday. So on Balramji's birthday, when Krishna was 5-year-old, Aghasur Vadh Leela took place. And when Krishna was 7-year-old, Kalia was subdued. So now, interesting phenomenon happened. In 10th canto, 12th chapter, 44th verse, there is an actual mention that Shukdev Goswami fainted as soon as Parikshit Maharaj put a question to Shukdev ji. Because as soon as Shukdev Maharaj said that, well, the story of Aghasur Vadh was narrated by the coward boys after 1 year, as if it was on that day itself. You know something, today Krishna killed Aghasur. That kind of way they explained, but it was after 1 year. So naturally, we should learn that Parikshit Maharaj is very attentive to every detail of the story explained by Shukdev. He was not tired or sleepy or bored or hungry or thirsty or sleepy. Huh? A great lesson to learn. We are hearing Katha only for 1 hour. He was hearing Katha for 24 hours without sleeping, non-stop for 7 days. And this was something like 4th day. Acharya explained that 9 cantos were explained in 3.5 days. And after 3.5 days, Krishna's Leela started, 10th canto began. So somewhere at the evening time of 4th day, and he has not slept for 3 days, not even taken a drink or food or any taken rest or any break in between. So he's expected to be a little tired and a little inattentive because no food has gone inside. But he's very alert and sharp. And as soon as he said that word, Shukdev Maharaj, Parikshit Maharaj immediately put a question. How it is that they narrated the story after 1 year? And imagine, that is the time when Shukdev Maharaj fainted. Now it's an interesting part for all of us to know that Shukdev Maharaj was known to be Leela Shuka, the parrot of Radharani. And everybody knew about him, including himself also, that if he utters a word of Radha, Shan Masini Murcha, he will go into 6 months of ecstasy and trance and unconsciousness. So neither he wanted to go in ecstasy because he knew my dear friend Parikshit Maharaj has only 7 days to live and I have to complete my message to him in 7 days. And neither Parikshit Maharaj wanted him to faint because he knew he had only 7 days. So Parikshit Maharaj, such a sincere listener, that knowing his speaker very well, he had already arranged a musical band and the players of band right in the assembly of the Bhagavatam, which was being spoken in the bank of Ganga. They were placed in strategic position right in front of the eyes of Parikshit Maharaj, so that moment he indicates them, they will start beating their drums and instruments loudly enough to wake up Shukdev Goswami. So as soon as it is explained in 10.44, 10.12.44 that Shukdev ji actually lost control over his senses and he fainted. He became unconscious. And immediately Parikshit Maharaj signaled the musical band and they started beating their drums loudly, and instantly Shukdev Maharaj regained his consciousness as if nothing happened. But he went in that ecstasy. And Prabhupada explains, and Suta Goswami also explains. Now, who has explained this? Suta Goswami is telling the Naimisharanya sadhus that at this point of time, Shukdev fainted. How Shukdev will tell I fainted? Suta Goswami told. So at that time, why he fainted? So it is explained that he was meditating on the Leela hidden inside Agasur Vad Leela. And that was called as Brahma Sammohan Leela. With the remembrance of Brahma Sammohan, and how Krishna bewildered Brahma, Shukdev Maharaj went in ecstasy. That is one of the reasons I also liked, because this Leela has got so much of wonderful aspects that I'll try to explain in all details to you over 2-3 lectures. That so many things were, interwoven in this Agasur Vad Leela. So many wonderful pastimes Krishna fitted in and nicely weaved into this Brahma Sammohan Leela. So then immediately Shukdev Maharaj told in the next chapter, first verse, that even after hearing Krishna Katha constantly for such a long time, you are still finding it interesting, you are still so attentive, and you are still finding it newer and newer and newer. Nama Navaya Man. And I congratulate you for your wonderful enthusiasm and attention and taste for Krishna Leela. And then Prabhupada explains that Shukdev, Parikshit Maharaj was a Bhagavata Uttama personality. Generally, this particular title is given to sannyasis or renounced people. But Shukdev Goswami is addressing Parikshit Maharaj, who was a grihastha, who was an opulent personality, who was a king. He is addressing, see, Shukdev Maharaj is a very renounced fellow, completely renounced, not even wearing clothes, wandering in the whole universe without wearing clothes. He was Digambar. And that great personality from whom his father, his father's guru, Agastya Muni, Bharadwaj Muni, all the sages heard Srimad Bhagavatam, that personality is addressing Parikshit Maharaj as Bhagavata Uttama, a very advanced personality in Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada says, unless one is really very advanced in Krishna consciousness, he cannot go on hearing Krishna Lila with interest. The symptom of hearing Krishna Lila and speaking Krishna Lila and remembering Krishna Lila constantly, unlimitedly, is the sign of a Bhagavat Uttama. And even though Parikshit Maharaj was Grahastha, he was Paramahamsa Bhagavat Uttama. He was the most renounced personality and most advanced in bhakti. So now, this is the most wonderful aspect. See, it is not that Shukdev Maharaj was just passively doing his duty. Shukdev Maharaj's narration was exactly in personal, moment-to-moment response to Parikshit Maharaj's consciousness. What encourages a speaker? The audience is listening attentively, with interest. Their body language is, showing the speaker that they are absorbing what the speaker is speaking. And when that happens, when there is a visual connection to the body language of the audience, it inspires the speaker. And when that happens, the Supreme Personality of Godhead speaks to the tongue of the speaker. Because it is not the speaker in one sense. It is the eagerness of the audience that makes Krishna speak through the tongue of the speaker. And the audience draw the nectar from the speaker by the power of their eagerness. Please understand. Many a times we speak, but we speak sometimes many things which are not planned. And we also wonder how we spoke those things. But the answer to that is the audience is drawing out that nectar from the speaker. And we become simply the instruments. Our tongue becomes an instrument in the hands of the Lord to enlighten, nourish, and make the audience blissful. So with this, Parikshit Maharaj question is put up. Shukdev Maharaj appreciates, Shukdev Maharaj encourages, Shukdev Maharaj congratulates Parikshit Maharaj. And he says, okay, I will explain to you. So he starts the story. Now the real story starts. Krishna brought, now see what happens is, I was wondering, they all had carried their cow herding sticks and their tiffin boxes were tied up at the top end of the stick and the stick was resting on their shoulder and they were walking, everybody was walking like that. So somewhere it is mentioned that when they entered the mouth of Aghasur, they also carried all the sticks and tiffins with them. And somewhere it is mentioned that they hung the sticks with the tiffins on the trees. And then they just said, we'll just have lunch later on, we'll just sport now. And they entered. Anyways, so when they came out, they picked up their sticks which were having tiffins hanging. Now, please understand, the tiffins, it is explained by Shukdev Goswami that tiffins were as brilliant as millions of suns. Just the tiffin boxes, huh? Imagine. Tiffin boxes had such fantastic items, fantastic variety of items. And even they were closed, the boxes were so effulgent. So Krishna, gathered all the coward boys. He said, okay, now we have been saved from the Aghasur, please let's go. Oh, in the meantime, where are our cows? The cows have gone here and there. The baby cows and baby bulls have gone here and there, like the deers go here and there in search of fresh grass. So let's go and gather them. So everybody gathered their calves, and with the calves and coward boys, Krishna said, oh, let's go back to Vrindavan. Let's go back home. And on the way, they were brought by Krishna to the banks of Jamuna. Now here, Shukdev Maharaj takes liberty and opportunity to glorify Vrindavan Dham and explains us the beauty of Vrindavan Dham. Oh, my dear listeners, please listen carefully. For a few moments, you can be in Vrindavan physically with this description given by Shukdev Goswami and Kavi Karnapur and Garga Muni and Jiva Goswami. He brought the cows and friends to the banks of Jamuna. They were all scattered here and there, like the deer during the Aghasur Leela. They were only coward boys went in. The calves, baby calves, did not go in the mouth of Aghasur. They were all wandering here and there. So Krishna displayed great love and affection while he was bringing the calves and coward boys back to him, walking towards Vrindavan. Krishna said, "Look at Jamuna. Look at this place, so beautiful. Yamuna is so much creating pleasing atmosphere by her beautiful, pleasurable, soft sounds of her waves. Blooming lotuses are all everywhere in the waters of Yamuna, and they are attracting bees and birds by their aroma. There are humming of bees and chirping of birds everywhere around here in this place. And this chirping and humming is echoing throughout the forest. And specifically, Krishna said the sands here are very clean and soft. So I think this is the best place. And he gave two reasons why we should choose this place for having our lunch prasadam. Because birds are not flying here and there are no animal footprints here. So this place looks like a perfect picnic spot and comfortable as much as the lap of a mother. What a beautiful description Shukdev Goswami is giving. I mean, he is repeating the words of Krishna. Krishna is giving this description that this particular soft sand is as comfortable as the lap of our mothers. Now, why birds should not fly there? Because the birds will come and disturb while you are eating food. Or sometimes birds may fly and drop their dungs and drop their waste. And there should not be animal footprints, because if there are some wild animals around and there are footprints seen, then again it will cause disturbance in our enjoyment. So Krishna said, no birds are flying over here, and only we are hearing chirping, but they are not flying around here. They are there on their nests and on the trees. So the boys had tied bundles of tasty prasadam items to their sticks resting on their shoulders. The Gopas agreed, we know, as we are feeling hungry, you are not different from us. You are like us only. So we assume and we understand that you also must be hungry. So let us all have. Yes, we will do it. Now the situation is like this. See, this is a beautiful situation. One should just imagine this in the courtyard of your heart. There was a circle of tall green trees. Listen carefully. There was a circle of tall green trees, and their branches had joined together to form a beautiful shadowy canopy over the banks of Yamuna. The earth was looking as pure and white as if Kavi Karnapur is explaining, as if it is washed by liquid silver. Liquefied silver is used as washing material to earth. Earth was as white and snowy. Very beautiful. Then there is explanation of breeze. What kind of breeze was flowing there? The breeze in Vrindavan, the Vayu Dev, it doesn't have a personal permission to exist in a personality form. Vayu Dev can exist in a breeze form there. And there are three specialities of breeze in Vrindavan, whenever it flows in Vrindavan. Manda, Sheetal, and Sugandhi. So it is Sheetal, it is cool because it carries the Bashpa or the humidity above the waters of Jamuna. You know, whenever you do boating in the ocean or river, it is explained that 4 to 6 feet distance above the water level is filled with humidity and filled with highest level of oxygen. So when the breeze flows, the breeze carries the humidity of the waters of Yamuna. Also, it carries the pollens, the fragrant pollens which are in the lotus flowers which are blossoming on the waters of Yamuna. So it carries coolness, which is not as cool to feel cold. It carries fragrance, so it gives pleasure to the Lord. And it is manda, so that it doesn't create so much of coldness. So the humidity makes you feel cool. The manda, that is very slow speed of the particular breeze, is not making it feel very cold, and it is giving pleasure of fragrance to the nose of Krishna. And when this fragrant, cool, humid breeze touches the body of Krishna and cowherd boys, it gives them great pleasure. So now Krishna is explaining, see how the breeze is so manda, so soft, so cool, and so fragrant, refreshing the entire area. कूजित कोकिल हंस सारस रस गणा किरणे मयूरे कुले. Prabhupada explains that even as early as 500 years back, right from 5,000 years back, from end of Dwapar Yuga when Krishna was there, till up till now, just 400 years back, Vrindavan was filled with such beautiful birds. Kokil is cuckoo, Hamsa is swan, and Saras means crane, and Mayur means peacock, and so many beautiful birds. They used to chirp and beautiful sound. Prabhupada says, come to Krishna Balram temple, the area called Raman Reti. There today also you will find beautiful birds singing their melodies of songs of love for Krishna. And Krishna said, we can all sit here and eat our prasadam. Our cows can drink fresh, cool, nectarian waters of Yamuna and graze on the fresh grass around in this area. And how they sat? Listen very carefully. Krishna was bluish in color, but at the same time he had golden effulgence and his yellow dhoti was shining like millions of suns. Krishna sat in one place and then that became the whirl or Karnika of the lotus flower, which was formed later on by the cowherd boys. The way they sat, they created a lotus flower arrangement. Kamala Vyavastha, Kamala Yojana. So the closest Gopas were very close to Krishna. They were in the first circle and they appeared like rays of sun, glowing with reddish hue. The first circle, that is Ashtasaka, they were glowing like reddish hue. As different boys sat in different circles around Krishna, the colors went on changing for many reasons. One reason was because they were also wearing colorful dresses and their presence itself created a different color to their circle. So how the colors changed? The colors changed to orange, yellow, green, blue and violet. That means Shukdev Goswami explains and Kavi Karunapur explains that the sitting arrangement, lotus-like arrangement was also looking like rainbow arrangement. What is there in the sky? What is appearing on the ground. Although the boys were at different distances, each one felt that Krishna was looking at him. Amazingly, please note this point, amazingly, no one saw Krishna's back. Although Krishna was surrounded from all 360 degrees by the cowherd boys, but everyone felt that Krishna was looking at him. This is Krishna's mystic power. Inconceivable mystic power. Generally, when I sit in a circle and people surround me, some people have to see my back. When I give pravachan, some people sit behind me. They don't see my face. They only have to see my back and my shikha maybe. But here, one time when I was hearing lecture from our Braj Chandra Prabhu, I was amazed. First time he told that nobody saw Krishna's back. Everybody saw not only Krishna's face, but everybody saw Krishna was only looking at him. That is Krishna's loving mysticism. This confirms the words of sages that Krishna's eyes are everywhere. Krishna's gaze is everywhere. Krishna is watching everything everywhere. His arms and legs are also everywhere as per Bhagavad Gita. Then Krishna told cowherd boys, now please remove your food items. The tiffins emitted brilliant effulgence everywhere. The boys placed their prasadam. Now listen, where the prasadam was kept. When they opened their tiffins, they put prasadam on flower petals. Some of them put on leaves. Some of them put on rocks. Some of them put on tree bark of the trees. And some of them put on the chadar which they had carried with them. Some of them put on their palms. Some of them put the prasadam on their well-built thighs. And some of them put on leaf plates which they had brought together. They opened and started feeding Krishna. First they tasted and they fed Krishna. And Krishna was very expertly talking nectarian words. The nectar was washing his lotus lips and was entering the ears of the coward boys. He was joking and making sweet, witty words during prasadam. Krishna spoke, and his speech was like nectar, drowning and showering the coward boys were around him. Then he said, he was moving his hands while talking. Huh? I don't know whether you have experienced. I have experienced some movements of some beautiful hands in abroad when I went. And I was trying to photograph and video them. Some people had such beautiful fingers, and the way they were moving their fingers was so attractive. You can imagine the mortals, men and women, have such beautiful fingers. What about Krishna? When he was talking to the coward boys, joking and making witty statements, his fingers and hands moved in such an expressive, attractive way. His mudras were so attractive that he entertained the boys with his witty words, with these beautiful mudras. The boys told funny jokes in response. Happiness of hearts of the coward boys were getting revealed on the faces through the form of their blissful smiles when they were with Krishna. Krishna's personal dealings increased their loving sentiments. See, Krishna's every activity was simply to please the coward boys with so much of love. Every word he spoke, every action he did, every morsel he ate, he responded to each and every coward boy. They were trying to say, "This is very good. Please, my mother has made this item very good. Please taste it. Just tasted it. It's so sweet." They'll take out from their mouth and put in the mouth of Krishna. And each and every coward boy was doing that. Then Krishna said, "Oh, why don't you give this others also?" Now please listen why Krishna said that. Krishna said, "I do not have the capacity or skill to appreciate the taste of a particular food. I don't have that quality. Some people are just like mechanical eaters. They don't appreciate, oh, this is sweet, this is so beautiful, this is so tasty, this is so namkeen, this is so fried, wonderful. I like all these things. They describe it so beautiful while tasting it. But Krishna, although being Rasaraj, the king of all rasas, including the food rasas, what is he saying here? I don't have the capacity to describe the beauty of the taste of these foods. So why don't you give it to others also? And then let everybody else respond how the food is tasty. Then we'll understand how tasty it is. Because they will explain, they have this knowledge. Now what the coward boys did? The coward boys, quickly put the morsels of food, what they had, in many coward boys' mouth. And then after doing one round with all the coward boys, they again came back to Krishna. And they again started feeding and pushing morsels of food in the mouth of Krishna. And what are they saying? Listen to them. What are they saying? They're saying that person whose maternal grandfather is a full number 1, he does not have ability to taste any food. Meaning, whatever they were saying made no sense. They were just saying for the saying's sake. जिसका नाना मूर्ख होता है उसको अन्न का स्वाद नहीं जचता या अन्न का स्वाद नहीं समझता. There's no relevance, no connection, no logic behind it. But children, they speak all sometimes senseless things in their joking, happy mood. So, boy said, one whose maternal grandpa is a fool does not have knowledge of taste. Everyone laughed and laughed and laughed. Krishna, your Nana is a fool number 1. And who they are talking about? Talking about the father of Yashoda, Sumukha Gopa, who stayed in Mehrano village. So they said, your father, your maternal grandfather is dark in color. That is why you are dark in color. Everybody is wondering why you are dark in color. You are also wondering because your maternal grandfather is dark in color and is fool number 1. That is why you have no ability to describe any taste of any food. Now, while everybody laughed, Sridama fed Krishna and other boys. Varutapa started feeding Krishna and other boys. Everybody appreciated the taste of the food served by Sridama and Varutapa. They said, this food that you are putting in our mouth, oh Varutapa, is exactly same like the food which was pushed in our mouth by Subal. We have become agitated by tasting the food of you and Subal. Instead of feeling satisfied, we are becoming more fiery in our stomach. by the wonderful taste of all the foods that you have brought. At the same time, when all these things are happening, all the demigods who were dancing, singing, and all those things they were doing, they were also watching. They just couldn't believe. They just couldn't believe their eyes. How this can happen? We know the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Yajna Bhuka. Yajna Bhuka means who accepts only the food offered in Yajna. He only accepts the remnants of Yajna, Yajna Prasadam or Yajna Bhoga. With all the ceremony and all the mantras and everything, rituals are performed, and he does not accept anything. And this personality is accepting the contaminated food from the mouths of this Vaishya community boys. How it can be possible? Some demigods who were devotees, they were able to understand the greatness of the Lord. And some demigods who were a little bit puffed up with pride, they were only questioning, how can this be Lord? How can this be Lord? Somebody say, he is Lord. How can we believe this? All cultured people, they never accept food from anyone's plate, forget about anyone's mouth. But here, the so-called Supreme Personality of Godhead, supposed to be our master creator of the universe, is behaving so ordinarily. He cannot be the Lord. Now, this reminds me of a beautiful story from Braj Bhumi. This is a place called Ganeshara. Ganeshara. That means you have Ganesh and add Ra, R-A in that. This place is somewhere near Madhuvan, Talvan, Kumudvan on that road. When you will go to Vrindavan and when you will visit, go to Madhuvan, on the way, when Madhuvan turn comes, the big entrance is there. On that, Ganeshara is written. And also Madhuvan, Talvan, everything is written there. So I was always wondering, what is this place Ganeshara? And through my research, I came to know that Ganeshara is a very beautiful place of Krishna's pastime. Now, all the, Devata and Upadevata. Devata means important devatas like Brahma or Ganesha or Shiva, Parvati, Kartikeya, or Vayu, or Chandra. And there's something called as Upadevatas. Upadevatas means Gandharva, Yaksha, Kinnara, secondary, you can say, secondary devatas. So Gandharvas are very expert in singing. Their job is to sing. And Prabhupada also explained that everyone must use all their skills to please the Lord. So Gandharvas, they had heard that our Supreme Lord, our Master, he has gone down to earth to perform his pastimes in Vrindavan Dham. And they also had heard that Sri Krishna performs the most lovable, most attractive, most satisfying pastimes in Vrindavan Dham. They had heard about it. So they wanted permission from Brahma. And Brahma granted them permission to go and visit Krishna and witness his pastimes. So all the Gandharvas who are great singers, kind of demigods, Upadevatas, that means they have their own opulence and they are proud and they think they are great singers and they have come as a official, visitors, official visitors. So they were watching. And what they are watching? In Ganeshara, what is happening? That day, the place Ganeshara was filled with kunda flowers. So the coward boys become very enchanted. Yashodamai has decorated Krishna in her own way in Nandagaon and sent him in Vatsapal Leela that day. But when the coward boys saw kunda flowers filled everywhere in Ganeshara, they decided to decorate Krishna with kunda flowers. So they made kunda garlands, they made kunda earrings, they made kunda hair garland, they made kunda kamarpatta, they made waist belt, they made bracelets, they made armlets, and they made every single thing of kunda flower, and they actually dressed Krishna very funnily, not necessarily very attractively like Mother Yashoda does, but they dressed Krishna in a very funny way. And then when they saw Krishna and they dressed Krishna, they themselves started laughing at Krishna, and they started laughed and laughed and laughed. And Krishna also laughed and laughed and laughed, and he was very happy that looking at his funny form filled with kunda flower in a very funny way, it is pleasing the coward boys. So he was very happy. He was laughing. They were laughing. And then suddenly Krishna said, "I'm hungry. I'm hungry." So they opened their boxes, and They had lot of butter that day, lot of yogurt that day, lot of milk products that day, lot of burfi that day, lot of sandesh that day. So many things were there, but butter was somehow prominent that day in their tiffins. So what they did, they fed Krishna, they ate themselves, Krishna fed them butter from their tiffins to their mouths, and finally they became very funny. So what they did, they made mustache of butter. They made beard of butter on their body. They made tilak of butter on their body. They put tilak of butter on Madhumangal's big belly and saying, look at this fellow, look at this fellow. He's eaten so much butter, it is coming out of his stomach. Look at him, look at him. They were drawing the tilak on his stomach and they were teasing him. And this inspired others to put tilak on the bellies of others. And they say, not only Madhumangal, look at this, it is coming out of this person's body also, it coming out of this stomach also. He is eating so much butter that mustache has come out of butter of his mouth in the form of butter. So much butter they have engulfed. And you know how children are. They don't just keep saying, they were laughing and saying and saying and laughing and saying and saying. It was such a fun. And while doing that, they were also licking that butter, which was in the form of mustache. They were feeding butter to Krishna. Krishna was stealing butter from their mouth and eating. And they were like, you know, what we do generally in the birthdays, the cake, the icing, we put the birthday baby's cheek, and she puts everybody's other cheeks and in hair and the dress, and they start throwing the butter cake on everybody's body. And this is how they enjoy. So like that, they were throwing butter, putting butter on the cheeks of Krishna, licking butter, licking Krishna's cheeks, which was filled with butter. And all these Gandharvas were watching. They knew that there are very loving pastimes, but they didn't know that this Yagya Bhuk Krishna is going to eat all the contaminated food from the lips and tongues and mouths of the coward boys, which is Vaishya community. How it is possible? Are we meeting the Lord, or are we meeting some ordinary coward boy and we are mistaking and in an illusion that he's Lord? We think that he cannot be Lord. So they were thinking Brahma sent us to meet the Lord, but doesn't look like a Lord. He looks like a Gopakumar, ordinary Gopakumar. And we have not come here to see ordinary Gopakumar doing childhood pranks and mischiefs and licking each other's cheeks. We must go and talk to Brahma about this. Did he send us to right place to meet our Lord? So they went to Brahma and told all the story. They thought their visit, their day pass to Vrindavan was not very successful because they did not meet the Lord. They met some ordinary boy. So Acharyas explain, this was the beginning of Brahma's illusion. The story of Brahma Vimohan actually began when Brahma had kusangati, bad association, faithless association, doubtful association of those Gandharvas. So even if you are Brahma, and even if you are meeting some Upadevata, but if it is going to be full of doubts and full of bad things, full of illusion, full of bewilderment, then you are bound to get affected. So this is a very interesting point. That Gandharvas actually first bewildered Brahma. That the boy whom Brahma thought as Supreme Lord was not a Supreme Lord. Okay? And then his bewilderment and illusion already had begun. With that, the news came that this boy who is eating the contaminated food from the mouth of coward boys, he had apparently killed Aghasur. Now Brahma and his Brahma Loka Vasis, they were all already in fear. I told you already. So the root cause of all the fear of even Brahma Loka Vasis was eradicated by the same boy. How it is possible? So Brahma came down to witness, is this the same boy? And he also saw. Now we are not in the scene of Ganeshara. Please understand. Ganeshara scene is over. Ganeshara watching Krishna doing all these butter pastimes by Gandharvas is over. Gandharvas have gone back to Brahmaloka. They have reported Brahma. They have contaminated the mind of Brahma. And now, after some time, the news came that Aghasur is killed by the same boy. So this time he wanted to really confirm what the Gandharvas are telling. is the same boy who has killed the python, and now he is on his swan. And on his swan, he is watching from sky that he's sitting in lotus form. And actually speaking, Brahma from the skies could feel the vibrations of happiness and joy, what was spread around by Krishna in the atmosphere and the banks of Jamuna. That means pure happiness is always pure and it affects you purely. Although Brahma was in bewilderment, but still the pure bliss of Krishna consciousness spread by Krishna in the atmosphere was touching the heart of Brahma, and he also was feeling blissful. He saw so much of joy is there, so much of enjoyment, so much of happiness these coward boys are enjoying. And this boy in between, blue boy, is giving so much pleasure to everybody. Is he the Lord? Then he thought, I'm also mystic. I'm also creator. So Acharya explained, Brahma that time had developed pride of his being Brahma. And Krishna knew that. And Krishna loves Brahma. Because Brahma is a great devotee of the Lord, great servant of the Lord. But somehow, even if you're a great servant of the Lord, great devotee of the Lord, still pride can affect us. Because pride is out of power that you have, the opulence that you have. And it is said, power corrupts and it corrupts absolutely. And Brahma had absolute power. He was the sole number one citizen of the whole universe who had created every living being existing in the universe. He had created every planet, every atom of the lokas that he had created. So you can imagine every single body in the material world is Brahma's child. He is great grandfather of everybody. If he takes a family picture, what the picture will be like, nobody can imagine because he is father of everybody. So natural pride is there. But please remember, it begins with wrong association. If you have lots of opulences and you have good association, less likely you will get contaminated with the illusion of power. Less likely you will become proud. But if you do not have good association, and in that place you have bad association, like the Gandharvas having doubts, then the pride will swell up. And with that swelled pride, Brahma had come there. And that pride also pushed him to think that I am so powerful. Let me use my mystic power to test this boy, whether he is really Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead or not. Now the coward boys are very busy, enjoying, completely engrossed, laughing, joking, and fully immersed in giving pleasure to Krishna and feeling happy themselves. Suddenly, some coward boys remembered, where are our baby cows? Where have they gone? They looked here and there from their lotus-like circular arrangement, and they did not see their baby cows and baby bulls. And they mentioned to Krishna, Krishna, we are not seeing our baby cows and baby bulls. Where are they? So Krishna said, you just sit here. Do not worry. Do not disturb the flow of your happiness. I will go and see. Now I will explain to you Krishna's appearance, how Krishna looked. How Krishna looked? Krishna was having flute tucked in his right side of waist, buffalo horn and cow herding stick stuck to his left side of the waist. The waist was looking very attractive, like a waist of a lion. His right palm, he was eating achar. It's our Krishna Kavira, Kavi Karnapur in Anand Vrindavan Champu is very beautifully explaining. He was having achar, spicy achar on his right hand. And his left hand had nectarian yogurt with some rice, mixed with rice. And with both these hands, he had, when he was holding like this, there were fruits hanging in between the fingers. He was holding fruits with the stalks above. And he was carrying the fruits around. And he was in between eating the fruits also. He had peacock crown on his head. He had yellow uttariya vastra on his shoulder. He has forest flower garlands. He had some dazzling ornament on his waist, kamar kachani or waist belt. He had ankle belts. He had Srivatsa and Kaustubh Mani jewels on his chest. And he got up in that beautiful position. And he said, "Oh, my dear friends, please sit here. Do not disturb. I will take care of the cows. I will go and find them." That means Krishna's pleasure is in giving pleasure to his friends and his devotees. And he's so kind that he doesn't want them to get disturbed. He wants to disturb himself. So he left the cowherd boys in enjoying condition and he left. Now, how to find baby cows or baby bulls or big cows or big bulls? The way they find is by the footprints. They follow their footprints. After some distance, there were no footprints of any baby cows and bulls. So they were everywhere. There were footprints just around the lotus-like arrangements. But after some time, there were no footprints. So Krishna, although appeared a little bit bewildered and puzzled, by the power of his antaryami condition, he came to know that Brahma has done this. And how to solve this situation, he was thinking, and he came back to the location where he was, and he did not find a single cowherd boy there also. So Brahma first told the baby cows and baby bulls, and then he saw Krishna is not there. He picked up all the cowherd boys, millions of them. And it is said, in some place it is said, he hid them in the cave somewhere. And in some one place it is very clearly said, he went to Brahma Loka and hid them in a cave. In Brahma Loka, in hypnotism, in Sammohan, he hypnotized them and put them in slumber. And they went to sleep. Now I'll tell you exactly what the cowherd boys were thinking when they were getting kidnapped. The cowherd boys were thinking that we can make the whole Brahma Loka, fall down, slip from his position and get destroyed. But our Krishna must be having some plan. So right now we choose to go to sleep. But the cowherd boys had that power. If they would have jumped with the desire of slipping Brahmaloka would have slipped from the position. But the cowherd boys thought, we will show this Brahma our power little later on. Let us now go to sleep as per his plan, and let Krishna do his mystical Leela. So they were not forced to be hypnotized. They were hypnotized, but they got hypnotized by their choice, not by Brahma's power. Please understand. They are Krishna's devotees. They are very powerful. But devotees of Krishna do not exhibit their power unnecessarily just to show their prowess. Like all the great devotees, in the ISKCON also I can tell you, our acharyas, they can read all your minds. They can read what's going on in your mind right now also. But they never will show that I am reading your mind. Aren't you thinking of this person right now? Aren't you thinking of money right now? They will not say it. They will not anytime show that they also have some mystic power. Even a mind reader came to Prabhupada one time. He was walking behind Prabhupada. He was trying to control the mind of Prabhupada for long distance. And he was walking behind Prabhupada. Suddenly Prabhupada stopped, turned behind, and told that man, please do not try your tricks on me. Try on somebody else. And that man was stunned that this man, first of all, did not get affected by my mystic power, and very boldly he ordered me and stunned me. And Prabhupada walked away, and this man also vanished from there. So it is not that Prabhupada didn't have mystic powers. Prabhupada also levitated. Prabhupada was seen levitating in the New Dwarka temple in Los Angeles. I have gone to that place. From which gallery, from which outing place he levitated with his chair, and people saw him levitated. Some people saw Prabhupada throwing golden effulgent light while walking in Los Angeles Road. So there are so many stories. But Prabhupada never exhibited his mystic powers and tried to impress people by throwing something in the sky or taking something out of sky. That is not the business of pure devotee. The business of pure devotee is to give pure love and devotion to people for Krishna, and not to get attract them by mystic powers or some cheap mystic show, magic show. So coward boys had the power to completely defeat Brahmaji's hypnotizing power, or Sammohan Leela, Sammohan Shakti. But they chose to keep quiet and they slept with their own sweet will. And next Monday, I will tell you how they actually took a very loving and funny revenge of Brahma later on. That I will tell you next time. But at this moment of time, Brahma stole the coward boys and the baby cows and baby bulls. And it is said in one moment he came back to see what's the fun. Krishna returned and he saw nobody there. And imagine how Krishna's concern is. More than Krishna's power of mystic power, more than Krishna's mystic power, I feel this is Krishna's concern and karuna and love for his devotees. What is the first thought came in his mind? What will I tell the mothers of coward boys? What will I tell those gopis? The boys went with you in your leadership, and you have come alone back. Where are my children? Where are our children? And similarly, the cows would ask, where are our calves? You took them with you. So, just not to disturb their happiness, Krishna immediately multiplied himself and took the forms of all the baby bulls, all the baby cows, and all the coward boys. It is explained by Prabhupada that Krishna, took forms of each and every coward boy with all their specialties. If somebody would, put kangi like this, he had that kangi in the same place. If somebody would put pencil or flute on the ear or somewhere in the shirt, same thing he would do. He did everything exactly the way of talking, walking, dressing, putting things and having the words and the sound of the throat. Exactly he, became like them. And as every day he does, singing songs and playing flute and collecting them, playing flute and collecting the cows. All the cows, baby cows were Krishna, all the coward boys were Krishna, but still Krishna acted as if he was playing flute for all their pleasure. And with all that very beautiful thing, they reached home. And what happened after they reached home, we will narrate next time. Hare Krishna. Such a sweet and beautiful pastime that I feel like I should stretch over 10 lectures. But anyway, it may be also, I'm not so expert narrator, so it may be boring for you. So I will still try to do it in 2-3 lectures. It's such a sweet and such a beautiful, nourishing, pleasure-giving pastime. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Really grateful to you. I'm already waiting for next Monday to come so that we can hear the further pastimes.
Thank you. Like Shukdev Goswami felt like congratulating Parikshit Maharaj, I feel like congratulating you.
The descriptions, sometimes I often wonder, like even in Srimad Bhagavatam and, other scriptures also, so beautifully the description is given of the environment where the pastime is happening. And so what is, is there a purpose behind that, or?
The purpose is to allow you to enter that Leela. That's the only purpose. The way it is being narrated by Shukdev, the way the acharyas narrate and you purport to that, the only idea is that you and me should be allowed to get easy entrance in those pastimes. That is the reason. And the more pure the speaker, the more pure the commentator, like acharyas, like Prabhupada, the more easy access you get into these pastimes. And the idea is not to just listen. Idea is to enter in the pastime, be part of the pastime. You become the part of the pastime when you listen attentively. You get entrance, and that is the beauty of this pastime. And if you get immersed and become one and forget everything while this is happening, you are successful. The purpose of Krishna's performing that pastime is successful when you get immersed by becoming one in the pastime. Hari Bol.
Maybe by your blessings, Prabhuji. Someday.
I'm in search of blessings for myself.
So it was so beautiful the way you explained. On the right hand was pickle. So I was thinking of dahi rice then with pickle, but fruits were also there. So there's such.
You can try today. You can hang some fruits between the fingers and see how Krishna must have felt. It is said that it is also explained by Kavi Karnapur that on the transcendental lines on the palms of Krishna were lying achar on one hand and the mixture of cool rice and yogurt on another hand. They were decorating the beautiful lines on the hands of Krishna. Yes, any other question? Achyut Krishna Prabhu. Okay, so there are no questions.
There is one thing which is anybody speaking? Sorry, I didn't.
I think it looks like they are still in the Leela only. They're not come out of the Leela.
So probably
Okay.
Every time I have this similar kind of a question that, about pride and, and you said doubt came into him. He did not doubt. He sent his messengers and all the devatas, Upadevatas, to go and check if that is the Supreme Personality.
No, it's not like that. It's not like that. He sent Upadevatas to actually go and visit Krishna and see his pastimes.
Pastimes, okay. He did not have the doubt.
No. But the way they came and told what they saw made that doubt enter in the heart of Brahma.
So it was because of already the position which he had that and plus the doubt which was brought to, like, came through the association.
It's like this. See, it's like, for example, your child goes to America to study, and you come to know they're enjoying like anything. They are really having fun. But you send somebody to see them, and then you actually see what they are wearing, what they are doing, what they are speaking, how they are walking on the road, what they are doing. Then you may get another information. I didn't expect this to happen. You know they were in America and they are happy there. But if some of your close associate goes and watches them, then he comes and tells you, oh, I saw your daughter doing this, doing that, wearing this, wearing that, talking this language. Then you say, oh, really? I never thought she would do this thing in America. So similarly, he had sent them to Vrindavan to see Krishna's pastimes, but he doesn't know himself that Krishna is eating from the mouth of the coward boys. He didn't know. He knows there are beautiful pastimes going on there and Supreme Lord is really pleasing the Brajvasis. But first time he is hearing from Gandharvas that Krishna is licking the cheeks of the coward boys, which has butter on them. And Krishna is licking the lips also of the coward boys, which has butter on them. And thus he is eating the butter. So is he the Lord? They are saying. So he's singing, is he the Lord? Let me check. So originally he was okay, but he was contaminated by the association of the doubting Gandharvas. You are muted.
Prabhuji, there is somebody who's raised his hand.
Divya Krishna is asking question.
Yeah. You can unmute yourself.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for the wonderful class. I wanted to say one shloka.
Please say.
I can't make out.
हरस्मितेना परिस्फुरत्कुण्डलमण्डितेन शोणायितेन धरबिम्बभासा प्रत्यन्तशन्तं सुनसेन सुभ्रुवा. So the meaning of this shloka is Mukhena Lokarti Harasmitena means the smile of the Lord can completely destroy our material distress. Mukhena Lokarti Harasmitena Parisfurat Kundala Manditena. His kundala is always tinkling with his cheeks. Mukhena Lokarti Harasmitena Parisfurat Kundala Manditena Shonaitena Darabimba Bhasa Pratyam Drishantam Sunasena Subhrava. So it completely destroys our distress in every direction.
Hey, very bold. So any other question anybody has before we end? I think we should end. Other children are waiting for me.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.